Hello and welcome back to the Perspective podcast with myself, Jess,
Millie and Ella.
So on today's episode, we're going to be speaking about our placements. We all had quite different experiences. So I did mine at PepsiCo. I was a packaging engineer for just over 12 months, and Millie's was quite different to mine, as was Ella's.
Yeah, so I did my placement at Devolve Kitchens, and I worked on the manufacturing side. So I worked in the metal studio for 6 months and the ceramic studio for another 6 months.
Yeah, and mine was at Sketch Studios, which is a furniture fit-out company, and I was a project coordinator, and I was there for 12 months. So, Jess, how did you find applying for your placement, and what was the process that you went through?
So I think I started quite early in comparison to maybe other people on the course, just because purely I wanted to get it kind of done and out the way and have the security that I knew I was going to be going into placement after second year. So I started looking probably end of first year, kind of towards summer, autumn time. And I was looking on like LinkedIn, Indeed, Rate My Placement, kind of generic websites like that. And Pepsi was the first one I applied to, coincidentally. I kind of just saw it. I said it was in Leicester packaging, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds quite good. So the application process was really easy. I think all I needed was my CV. Didn't need a portfolio. I don't think any of the ones I applied to needed a portfolio, actually. And then I sent in my CV. I think I answered a few different questions, kind of situation-based tasks, and kind of how would you respond to this? What would you do if your team was feeling like this? Just so they can kind of understand your character and see if you're a good fit for the team. So that's quite important at Pepsi. Kind of your kind of character style and how you speak to different members of your team and such. So I did that, and the process was quite strange actually, because I kind of sent the application off maybe end of August, and I didn't actually hear anything back until it was the assessment centre. So I kind of went straight from applying to final stages, which was weird because everything else kind of seemed to have something in between them. I can't remember if I did psychometric testing or not. But those are kind of very boring games meant to gauge your kind of character style. And then, final interview was kind of the typical group task, individual chat. And then I also had to do a little presentation. We had to choose a brand from the catalogue and say like how we'd redevelop it. So I think I chose Lavazza coffee, which they don't actually own anymore. But I was saying how they could introduce it with like vegan alternative milks. And then did the interview, kind of didn't really think much of it, and then an hour later they called me back and offered me the job, which was a big surprise, but it was really good and I was really happy. So I had secured that from about December time. I interviewed at a couple other places. I think I went to Gymshark, Kantar, TUI, but I already knew I had a Pepsi in the bag, so it was just kind of to see if I could get anything else and have a few options. But yes, that was how I applied for mine. Do you want to tell us about how you did yours, Millie?
So mine was actually quite a lot later. I didn't start looking for placements until about December time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just still quite early compared to a lot of our course. And I went about it. I sort of looked on In Place and sort of tried to look at what was already available. And I was quite interested in consultancies, but also I knew that I was very interested in the making side of stuff, because I felt like kind of missed out on that a little bit because of COVID. And so most of my process went through like emailing different companies that I felt would be interesting to work at and that would suit my personality. So Deval is one of those companies that I messaged. So I actually knew that a few people in the year above had had a placement with them and really enjoyed it. So I emailed Deval, which I think they really liked. They said they liked the initiative of that, and it showed that I was really keen and interested. And I expressed an interest in working in the ceramics studio. So I had a trial day, which was really great. So it's a bit like with Pepsi about like assessing your character. It was sort of how I fitted in with the team, because it's only a team of probably like 8 to 10 people, maybe less. So that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got I think I had an interview on the same day, just after the trial day, just to see how I found it and like basically try and figure out what I was trying to get out of the placement. And then they gave me the job, I think a few weeks later, so not quite as quick as yours, Jess. But I was thrilled. I went for a few other interviews. Some of them were over Teams for other companies and stuff. But Devolve just felt like the right fit. It was quite relaxed and it was all about making hands-on. And when I got the job, it was meant to be 12 months being in the ceramic studio. And they offered me a position for 6 months in the metal and then 6 months in the ceramic, which was actually really great because it gave me a much wider variety of materials and knowledge. And I really enjoyed that. It was a bit daunting on my first day when I started in metal because I'd never met any of them. But yeah, that's sort of how I went about the process. So Ella, how did you get into your placement?
Yeah, so it was a bit different. I wanted to get a placement abroad firstly. So I emailed, it must have got up to about 200 companies of like sending out my my portfolio. But I didn't hear back. So then I did like Google searches and just found places near me and applied for one about 10 minutes from my house, which is like a furniture manufacturer. And I applied for that in first year. And then towards the end of second year, it then got cancelled about 2 weeks before I was going to start. So I then thought, well, I need to find something pretty quick. So then I was just doing Google searches around London and found this furniture fit out company, Sketch Studios. So I emailed them and I was like, is there any chance you might have a place? And turns out that someone who was working there was about to go on maternity leave and they had a slot that's just opened up. So I was like, brilliant. So I just went in for an interview, very relaxed. And although I wanted to get into design, the only like kind of option they had available was a project coordinator. So I took it really, but loved it. So I was kind of working with sales, working with designers, going to showrooms, meeting furniture manufacturers, working with the clients, and basically organising all of their furniture fit out for offices and hotels and hospitality. And they had stuff all over Europe, so it was really fun to like see things coming together. But yeah, so that was how I found it.
Do you think if you hadn't have found another one that quick, would you have taken a year out, or do you think you would have gone straight into final year?
I would have taken a year out, absolutely. Yeah. I think even if you're not working in like industry, even taking a year out and still coming back to it to give yourself like kind of fresh mindset coming into final year is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is quite a popular option still. If you know you don't want to do a placement, or if things just don't work out and you don't end up finding one, then a lot of people do just take a year out, kind of get some work experience doing a variety of different things, whether that is if it's like a bar or a pub or something to do kind of more specific with design. Then I think it's still definitely worth it just for the experience, especially if you haven't got any kind of part-time work prior to uni. Just kind of bulks out the CV a bit, I guess.
Mm-hmm. As you hinted at, your placement wasn't quite as stereotypically design related. What was it that you were doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so a lot of what I was doing was getting quotes from suppliers. So in order to price up big projects, I had to make sure all of the kind of fabrics were the right prices, the furniture was the right prices, with markups and things like that and profit margins. So a lot of what I was doing was very numbers based, very numbers heavy, which isn't necessarily my strong point. But it was something that, you know, you just like grow to enjoy, especially in placement. And then lots of that would be like sent off to the clients, and then they would come back and ask to order it, and then I would then put in the orders. But it was quite complicated in terms of like looking at the electrics and what electrics were needed in like desking and lighting and that kind of thing. So it was very broad. It wasn't just kind of like getting numbers. It was a lot of furniture speccing, and if anything wasn't right in terms of the quote, and say if we had like 100 desks being delivered in the wrong color, it would come back and it would be my responsibility. So there was quite a lot of it was a big amount of responsibility for the amount of furniture that I was ordering. Was a lot, but it was good. Lots of meetings with sales, making sure that we had all the right equipment and furniture and things like that, as well as looking at lead times, the right fit out, and working really closely with like project managers as well. So I was kind of like the middleman between sales, project managers, design, and the client.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think you liked having that amount of responsibility placed on you, kind of going straight into the role from uni, or was it a bit daunting at first?
It was so daunting. I was not expecting it at all. I thought I'd be making like cups of tea, and then to have that kind of responsibility was crazy. But I really enjoyed it. And actually after a while you just get into the flow of it. Like with placement, you're like, you feel like your head's hardly above water, and then you just get used to it and you understand the swing of things. So it probably took me a good 6 months to find my feet, which is a long time, because it's such a different role. But yeah, no, I did enjoy it, and I did like find my feet.
Did you find that they supported you a lot when you first started?
Yeah.
Knowing that you haven't come from that background.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was a great company, and I had great managers who were able to support me. And they knew that like maths wasn't my strong point, but it's the kind of thing where like when you work in a team, everyone chips in and everyone helps each other in their own like in their own way. But yeah, it just took going to like furniture suppliers a bit more. So every week we would do showroom tours around Clerkenwell in London, and kind of get to know the furniture as well. So it took me going to that a little bit more to kind of like understand what furniture I was speccing and putting in places, rather than just being like a word on the screen.
Yeah, I feel like context makes such a big difference when you're in like a whole new environment. Like when I was on my placement, they used so many abbreviations and things like that, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, as soon as you can kind of pick up the working culture, I think it makes a real big difference as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a shift from uni to work. It's massive. So actually getting used to that is something that no one can really teach you.
No.
But how did you find your placement?
Yeah, I loved it. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was very hands-on. It was all about making. And a little bit like you said, like you kind of, once you got context, it made more sense. It's the same for me. I remember like when I was in metal and I was doing the accessories like the doorknobs and the handles and stuff. And I kind of like, you appreciate what they are, and they're gorgeous, like well-made pieces. But until I went to the showrooms and stuff and saw it on the furniture, it all comes together a lot more. Like the kitchens just looked amazing because like they specialize in brass and stuff. Yeah, so it was really interesting learning the process of like antique brass. So it comes like we polished it up and everything, and then adding it to the aging tank, or like using sawdust and vinegar and stuff, and all these different techniques. It felt very privileged actually, because it's obviously a small team, and they shipped all over the world, and like there's some quite famous people that ordered them. So when you saw their names on the order sheet, it was quite special. But yeah, it was great. And also the team was like you were saying, they're so supportive. The team were amazing. And it just felt like a little family, which it was kind of sad to move from metal to ceramics in some ways halfway through the year, because I felt like I made such strong friends. But it was the exact same situation in ceramics. Like it was lovely, and it was really nice, because I think personally I'm more aligned to making things like from scratch in ceramics rather than metal, and obviously that's what I initially applied for. So yeah, it was really great going back to ceramics. So what you do is you sort of like you slip cast like their shades, their like lampshades, in either porcelain or in creamware and stuff, and earthenware. And then they also have these teapots and these platters and tiles. And so I was involved in every aspect of the production, which was lovely because it was great variety. And your day kind of was split up quite nicely between each product. And then the porcelain's unglazed, so you spend a lot of time sanding and wet fettling and stuff, trying to really make it as perfect as possible. Because once it's been fired, that's it. That's kind of that's how it looks. So that's quite daunting, but I definitely got better at that. And then some of the rest of the other products, like the tiles and the teapots and other shades, they're all glazed. So it was really interesting watching that happen. And I learned a lot about glaze recipes and how difficult they are to get right. So there was a lot of product development as well happening in the ceramic studio when I was there, which was amazing, because you can kind of see how different it is for an established company when they're coming up with new products or like expanding a line. It's very different because obviously they need it to fit in with what they're already doing, as opposed to uni where it's just completely different to anything you've done before, and every project is new. So that was really great, looking at how they were trying to like fit it in with their own aesthetics already. But yeah, no, it was brilliant. And every day I felt different, and I've definitely got a lot more comfortable with making, which has really helped me in final year at the moment. Yeah, how about you?
So yeah, I think at Pepsi it was quite different, maybe just because there was so many of us students there. So I lived in a house with 8 of us, and there was probably 2 or 3 other student houses. We were based in Leicester. at the site in Beaumont Leys. We have a manufacturing site down the road, and then the R&D site was up the road from that, which was good because it's quite a lot of us together, and if you needed to go down to the factory, you could really easily. So I was the only student that did packaging. There was probably about 8 product developers, a couple guys doing nutrition, and then all the manufacturing people. So my role was quite unique compared to them, and I think my experience probably differs a lot because of that. But I think it was also really good, just because I was the only student in my team. I kind of got to like leverage a lot of opportunities there, whereas sometimes maybe the others would kind of have to fight for it a little bit more. Like if there was a conference going on, and only so many people could go, then they'd obviously kind of have to be like, oh, I should go because of this maybe. But yeah, it was really good. So I spent a lot of the time flicking between a lot of different projects. I kind of took on as much responsibility as any other one of the packaging engineers would, which was really, really good. I think, as you guys probably said, a bit daunting at first. And I think it did probably take me until around Christmas time to kind of really fit into it. So I started in the July. But I think once you get it, then you just get it and you just kind of don't go back to that, oh, that's a bit scary mindset. But yeah, I was mostly working on kind of pushing towards like our like PEP Plus goals, they call them, like sustainability initiatives, making sure that bag sizing is correct for new product launches, working on new packaging formulas that we're trialing to see if we can like launch and leverage in other markets, looking at kind of different sorts of materials that we may be able to use to replace current ones. Lots of different things that I can't really get into the specifics of, but really, really interesting. There's a big kind of community within everybody that works there. So we have like different pillars, we called them. So we had like the Fine Balance team, which I was on, which was all to do with kind of promoting mental health around the office. Community team, which I also did. We would raise kind of money for different charities. So I think we did some bits to do with a local like animal shelter, different homelessness charities, things like that. There was loads of others that were like STEM ones, and they really encouraged all the students to get involved with that. So that was really rewarding to kind of do that alongside work along the year, and they would always give you the time to do that. So if you needed an afternoon off to go over to a charity and kind of help them sort kind of for food banks and stuff, we'd be able to do that. It was really, really nice. Which yeah, I think obviously Pepsi is a big corporation and I feel like they should be doing that, but I think the fact that it's so ingrained into the working culture is really nice, because I think sometimes it's kind of overlooked by the big companies donating a lump sum to charity each year, but it's nice that you get to go and see kind of what these charities are doing and how you can help them. But yeah, Pepsi was really good, really big company. Definitely lots of opportunities there that maybe I could return to in the future. Not too sure yet, but yeah, we'll see. What would you guys say is kind of the main thing that you took away from placement that you've imposed into final year so far?
I'd say probably making everything. So like prototypes, sure, and then just making good working relationships with everyone in the workshop. So getting down early, because I sort of have a new appreciation of how long things can take to make and how long it takes to develop. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would probably say organisation, just because I had to be so on it in terms of placement. So now I'm like really good at planning my time and making sure that I've got the right steps to follow in my final project. What about you, Jess?
So I think mine would probably be networking. I think that was something that was really encouraged at Pepsi, and often you'd kind of, well, I'd have these meetings with my manager and he'd be like, what do you want to do? Like you've only got like 6 months left, you only got like 3 months. And I'd say like, I want to do work with the design team or this, which I did get to do purely because we kind of sent an email or sent a message, and it was all set up for me, which was good. So yeah, I'd say definitely networking. Just don't be afraid to message people on LinkedIn and be like, I've seen what you do, I'm really interested in it. Can you set aside some time to tell me some more? And like 9 out of 10 times people will do it because yeah, they just want to help.
And finally, what would your tips and tricks be if you had to give one to someone who's looking for placement? What would it be?
I think I'd say be open-minded. I don't think packaging is something I necessarily thought I would wanted to do or would have even looked for. It's just kind of spontaneous decision to apply, and obviously it worked out really well. So yeah, I'd say if you see something that looks kind of even within the realm of design, or maybe even not, but it could still have relevancy, I'd just say apply, because even if you don't want to do it or you don't end up getting it, that kind of experience of going through the application process is going to be so valuable when or if it comes to finding something and you're like, wow, I really want to do that.
I'd definitely say don't be afraid to message. because a lot of the time they won't even know that place thing, or like they won't have considered it before, so especially smaller companies. But actually it's worthwhile just sending a quick email, because sometimes they'll get back to you, and sometimes it's an amazing opportunity. So don't count yourself out because of that.
Definitely. I would say if you don't ask, you don't get. You know, if you want to jump into like a company and it's a slightly different role, but ask to try some stuff out in another department, you will just have to ask, and likely they will want to help you out in that aspect. So yeah, I would just do what you said as well and just try it out.
That's the end of the episode. Thanks so much for listening. We've been Perspective, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.